The desert world of Unearthed stretched endless under the burning sun. Its sand dunes rolled like waves of a golden sea, hiding secrets that had been buried for thousands of years. When the human ship landed on the cracked ground near an ancient ruin, dust rose in clouds and the air shimmered with heat. The small team of explorers stepped out, their eyes fixed on the massive stone pillars that jutted from the desert like broken teeth. David, the leader, adjusted his visor and scanned the horizon. He was a calm man, chosen for his steady judgment and patience. His boots sank slightly into the sand as he walked toward the ruins. Behind him, his crew followed, carrying scanners and light equipment. Beside them walked 3 alien guides from a local tribe. The guides wore long robes to protect themselves from the heat, and their dark eyes never stopped watching the ruins with a mix of fear and respect. "This is the place," one of the guides said softly. His voice carried weight, as if the desert itself demanded silence. David looked up at the half-buried structure. Symbols carved into the stone glowed faintly, though no power lines or lamps could be seen. The carvings showed a tall figure with arms raised to the sky, rays of light spreading from its body. David had read about this image in the old legends of Unearthed. The people called it the sun god, the protector who once saved their ancestors from eternal night. The crew began their survey. One scanned the sand with a portable device that beeped when it caught hints of metal beneath. Another took pictures of the walls, careful to record every detail. David moved deeper inside, his eyes drawn to the shadow of a doorway where the air felt cooler. Inside, the corridor opened into a wide hall, its roof cracked and open to the desert sky. The walls were covered in more carvings, telling a story in images. David traced his hand near them but did not touch. He saw pictures of a blazing sun, figures kneeling, and a shining statue at the center. What caught his attention most was an image of travelers from the stars standing beside the statue. It looked eerily similar to humans. "Captain," one of his crew called. "We found something." David hurried to the spot where his team gathered. Half buried in the sand was a stone slab, flat and wide. As they brushed the grains away, lines of symbols appeared, forming what seemed to be a map. The shapes carved on the slab showed the desert, with lines pointing to a large circle in the center. Around the circle were rays, just like a sun. One of the guides stepped forward, his hands trembling. "That is the mark of the forbidden chamber," he whispered. "No outsider has ever entered and returned." The other guides nodded, fear plain on their faces. They refused to look at the slab, turning their eyes away as though it might curse them. David studied the map carefully. His mind worked quickly, piecing together the shapes and directions. He could see where the slab pointed, a place not far from their current location, buried beneath shifting dunes. "This is it," David said. "This is where we'll find the truth of the sun god." The guides shook their heads. One stepped forward, placing a hand on David's arm. "Do not go there," he said firmly. "The chamber is not meant to be opened. The sun god rests, and he must not be disturbed." David looked into the guide's eyes and saw only fear. But fear had always been the shadow of discovery. He thanked the guides for their warning but knew in his heart that he would press on. Humanity had always searched for knowledge, even in places where others dared not go. As the sun lowered in the sky, the crew made camp near the ruins. The desert cooled, but the wind carried a strange hum through the air, almost like a song. David sat by the fire, holding a small recorder in his hand. He spoke quietly, making a log of their findings. "We have uncovered a map inside the ruins," he said. "It points to a hidden chamber. The local people say it is forbidden, but every legend has a seed of truth. Tomorrow, we will follow the path and see what lies beneath the sand. The sun god may not be only a story. The fire crackled, and the stars slowly revealed themselves above. David looked up at the endless sky, filled with millions of lights, and felt a strange connection between the heavens and the desert beneath him. Somewhere in that silence, the statue of the sun god waited, and he was certain that humanity was meant to find it. Sleep came slowly that night. The wind whispered through the ruins, carrying with it voices that sounded almost human. Some of the crew tossed uneasily, their dreams filled with flashes of golden light. The alien guides stayed apart, chanting prayers to keep away spirits. David, however, lay awake, staring into the darkness. His heart was calm but strong with purpose. He knew that in the morning, they would take their first steps toward the forbidden chamber. And once the sands revealed what they had hidden for ages, nothing would ever be the same again. The desert sun rose high the next morning, painting the sky in pale gold. David stood with his crew at the edge of the ruins, staring out at the endless sea of dunes. The map carved on the stone slab had been copied into their recorders, and now the path was clear. Somewhere beneath the shifting sands lay the hidden chamber that the locals feared to approach. The alien guides had gathered their belongings at dawn. They refused to travel further. One of them, the eldest, bowed to David. "You must turn back," he warned. "The sun god guards his rest. He will not welcome strangers." David nodded politely but did not argue. The guides left, their figures soon swallowed by the desert haze. That left only the human crew, 5 determined explorers, standing against the winds of Unearthed. "Captain," one of the crew members said, brushing sand from her visor. "Are we really going through with this?" David looked at her steadily. "Yes. Humanity has come too far to stop now. If this chamber holds answers, we will find them." With that, they loaded their equipment onto small hover sleds and began the journey across the dunes. The desert stretched endlessly, but the map guided them. They followed the carved lines, turning when the pattern required, until at last they reached a vast depression in the sand. It was a hollow shaped like a circle, too perfect to be natural. "This is the place," David said. The crew began to work. They set up scanners that pulsed waves deep into the sand. The machines hummed and beeped until finally a clear image formed on their displays. Beneath the dunes lay a massive structure, its walls buried but intact. At its center stood a chamber sealed by a door larger than any they had ever seen. Hours passed as they dug through the sand. The desert resisted, collapsing into their holes, but they pressed on with determination. Finally, the tip of a stone arch rose into view, carved with the same sun symbols they had seen in the ruins. Each symbol glowed faintly as though it remembered the light of an ancient power. The crew cleared the sand away until the full doorway was revealed. It was a towering gate made of stone and metal, fused together so tightly that no time or storm had broken it. Across the surface stretched carvings of a radiant figure raising its arms, the same image of the sun god that filled the legends. The air around the chamber grew hotter as they approached. A strange hum vibrated in the sand, echoing deep within the earth. The crew stepped back uneasily, but David moved closer, his eyes fixed on the gate. "This is no simple tomb," he said. "It is more than a legend." The others hesitated. One spoke in a low voice. "Captain, maybe the guides were right. Maybe this should stay sealed." David placed his hand on the cool stone surface. "We cannot turn back now. If this statue is real, if it is more than myth, the galaxy deserves to know." They searched the gate for a mechanism. At first, nothing appeared but carvings and dust. Then one explorer brushed his hand across a sun symbol, and the lines lit up, glowing like fire. The gate trembled, and the hum grew louder, deep and powerful. The crew stepped back as cracks of light appeared between the stone edges. Sand poured down from above, and the ground shook beneath their feet. Slowly, with a grinding roar, the great gate began to part. A rush of heated air escaped, carrying with it the smell of old stone and something metallic. Darkness waited beyond, but within that darkness glimmered faint sparks of gold. David raised his light and stepped forward. "Stay close," he told the others. They crossed the threshold into the forbidden chamber. The air inside was heavy and hot, pressing against their skin. The walls stretched high above, covered in glowing runes that shifted and moved like living fire. The floor beneath their boots was smooth, polished stone, but in places it shimmered with reflections like metal hidden beneath. The crew's lights swept across the chamber until they fell upon the far side. There, rising from the center of the hall, stood a vast shape. At first it seemed like a mountain of gold, but as their eyes adjusted, the details became clear. A figure towered before them, carved in perfect form, arms raised toward the sky as if holding up the sun itself. It was the statue of the sun god. For a long moment, no one spoke. The golden figure shone faintly in the light, its eyes dark but deep, as though waiting. Its presence filled the hall with silent power, making every human heart beat faster. One of the crew whispered, unable to stop themselves. "It is real." David stepped forward, his face lit by the golden glow. The legends had spoken of a statue, a protector, a god of light. Yet what he saw before him was not just an idol. The base of the statue seemed too perfect, too smooth, with faint seams that looked like panels. This was no ordinary monument. "This is not just a statue," David said quietly. "It is something more. Something alive with power." The others exchanged uneasy glances. The forbidden chamber had revealed its secret, but it had also awakened a question that none of them could answer. If this was truly the sun god of legend, then what purpose had it been built for? And why, after so many ages, did it feel as though it was waiting for them? The chamber seemed alive with silence. Every step the humans took echoed against the golden walls, as if the hall itself was listening. The statue of the sun god towered before them, its golden body shining faintly under the glow of their lamps. The figure's arms reached upward as though it was calling the sky to pour light into the world. David stood at the front, staring up at the giant form. Even though it did not move, the statue seemed to watch him. Its eyes, made of dark crystal, reflected the beams of their lamps, creating the illusion of a hidden fire deep within. One of the crew whispered, "It feels like it is waiting for us." David did not reply. He walked slowly across the smooth floor, his boots clicking softly. He circled the statue, scanning every detail. Its surface was perfect, without cracks or chips despite the countless years it had rested in the dark. The golden metal was polished as though it had been cleaned only yesterday. At the base, David noticed lines etched into the stone. He knelt and brushed away dust. The markings were not decorative carvings but symbols glowing faintly, like circuits alive with hidden energy. "This is not just art," David said. "Look at these. This is technology." The crew gathered closer, their lights sweeping across the base. They could see the seams now, straight and sharp, unlike natural stone. Small panels seemed fitted together, as if the statue had been built piece by piece, not carved from a single block. A scientist in the crew tapped her recorder, speaking quickly. "The structure is not simple metal. Readings show alloys we have never seen before. And there is energy inside, weak, but still present. After all these centuries, something is still active. The others exchanged uneasy glances. The legends had described the sun god as a divine protector, a being of fire and light. The statue before them looked exactly like that, but David's eyes told him it was something greater. It was not only a symbol of faith but a creation of immense power, perhaps even a machine built to guard the planet. The air grew warmer as they studied the statue. Strange currents swirled around the chamber, ruffling their clothes. At times it felt as if the statue itself was breathing, pulling in air and releasing it again. "Captain," one of the crew said nervously, "maybe we should leave before we wake something we cannot control." David did not step back. His gaze stayed locked on the golden figure. If this was built by an ancient people, then they left it here for a reason. If it was worshipped as a god, it must have done something to earn that place in their history. We need to understand it. The scientist knelt near the glowing circuits. She reached out with a scanning tool, sending a small pulse of energy through the symbols. For a moment nothing happened, then the lines flared brighter, glowing gold across the base. The crew froze. The statue's eyes flickered, two dark crystals flashing with a brief spark of light. It faded quickly, but it was enough to make every heart pound. "It moved," someone whispered. David's voice was steady though his pulse raced. "Not moved," responded. "It is still awake." He walked closer, standing directly beneath the towering figure. From this angle the statue seemed endless, stretching toward the roof like a pillar of light. David reached out his hand, almost touching the golden surface. The metal radiated warmth, not from the lamps but from itself. As he stepped back, he noticed something else. The floor around the base was not solid stone. Beneath the thin layer of dust, the floor shimmered like glass. He bent down and wiped it clean, revealing a smooth surface that reflected light like a mirror. Underneath, faint shadows shifted, shapes that looked like moving gears or currents of fire. "This whole chamber is not a tomb," David said slowly. "It is a machine. The statue is the heart of it." The crew listened in silence. The air around them grew heavier, filled with tension. They felt both awe and fear at the same time. The forbidden chamber was no longer just an ancient hall. It was alive, filled with power waiting to be released. David ordered the team to set up equipment. They placed scanners and energy meters around the statue, recording every flicker of light. As the devices activated, the statue's golden skin seemed to respond, glowing brighter in patches. The air vibrated with a deep hum, a sound that came from everywhere and nowhere at once. One of the crew stepped back, eyes wide. "It is waking up." The hum grew louder, the golden glow spreading across the statue's body. The dark crystal eyes flickered again, holding light for longer this time. The crew stood frozen, caught between terror and wonder. David's heart pounded but his voice remained calm. "Stand your ground. Do not run. This is what we came for." Slowly, the eyes of the sun god brightened, glowing like small suns in the shadowed hall. The statue had not yet moved, but its presence filled every corner of the chamber. It no longer felt like lifeless gold. It felt aware, watching, measuring. The explorers realized the truth at that moment. The sun god of legend was not just a statue to be worshipped. It was a guardian left behind by an ancient civilization, and it had been waiting in silence for someone to come. And now, for the first time in ages, it had begun to awaken. The chamber trembled with a deep hum that seemed to rise from the ground itself. Dust shook loose from the high ceiling and drifted down in golden clouds. The explorers stood frozen, staring up at the towering figure of the sun god. Its golden body shimmered brighter with each passing second. David gripped his recorder tightly. His instincts told him that they were no longer standing before a silent monument. They were standing before something alive. "Captain," one of the crew whispered, "we need to leave." But before David could respond, the statue's eyes burst open. Twin beams of golden light blazed across the chamber, cutting through the dust and filling every shadow. The air grew heavy with heat, and the explorers shielded their faces. The statue's mouth opened slightly, and a sound rumbled out, a deep voice, not mechanical, not human, but something in between. "Who enters my hall?" the voice thundered, echoing across the chamber walls. No one answered at first. The crew looked to David, their faces pale, waiting for his decision. David stepped forward, his voice steady. "We are humans. We came to learn the truth of this place. We seek knowledge, not harm." The golden eyes fixed on him. For a moment, silence returned, broken only by the hum of energy. Then the statue shifted. Its arms lowered slowly, golden fingers curling as if grasping unseen fire. The ground shook as the figure moved, each sound like stone grinding against stone, though the surface was smooth metal. "You awaken me," the voice said. "Why?" David chose his words carefully. "Because we must know. Legends say you once protected this world. If you are real, then the galaxy must understand who you are." The statue tilted its head slightly, like a judge weighing the words of a stranger. "Many came before you," it said. "They sought treasure. They sought power. None were worthy. Do you claim to be different?" David's throat tightened, but he stood firm. "Yes. Humanity has always searched for light. We do not seek to enslave or to worship. We only wish to learn." The golden eyes narrowed. Suddenly the chamber shifted. The floor beneath them rippled with light, and the explorers gasped as the air transformed. Fire swept across the walls, and storms raged above their heads. It was no longer a silent hall, it was an endless battlefield made of illusions so real they could feel the heat and wind. One of the crew cried out, falling to the floor as flames circled them. Another raised an arm against the wind, nearly thrown from their feet. The statue's voice boomed over the chaos. "Then prove your words. Show me that your kind has strength, that you are more than seekers of gold." David stood tall as the illusions closed in around him. Fire licked at his boots, lightning cracked above, but he refused to flinch. His crew struggled, some dropping to their knees, but he called out over the storm. "Hold on. It is not real. Do not give in." The crew clung to his words, forcing themselves to resist the illusions. Their breaths came heavy, sweat pouring from their faces, but slowly they rose again. One by one they stood beside their captain, refusing to bow to fear. The statue watched silently, its eyes glowing brighter. The storms raged harder, fire blazed hotter, but David and his team endured. They shouted to one another, lending strength with every word. Finally, David raised his voice above the roar. "We are human. We do not run from fear. We face it. We endure it. And we protect life even in the darkest night." The flames froze, lightning stopped, and the storm faded into silence. The chamber returned to its true form. The explorers stood together, breathing hard, their faces covered in sweat and dust. The statue's golden eyes dimmed slightly, as though in thought. Then it spoke again, its voice softer but still deep and powerful. You endure. You face the trial with courage. Few have done so. Perhaps your kind is not as weak as I believed. David felt his chest rise with a deep breath of relief, but he kept his voice calm. We did not come here to prove power. We came to understand you. Who built you? Why do you sleep beneath the sands? The statue lowered its gaze. I was built by a people long gone. They forged me as a guardian. I defended their world when the skies turned dark, when shadows fell from beyond the stars. I was called the sun god, not because I was divine, but because I carried the light of their fire. When my makers perished, I remained. I waited for those who might come after. But all who entered this place failed the trial, consumed by fear or greed. David's eyes narrowed with thought. And now? The golden figure leaned forward slightly. The heat of its body pressed against them like the sun itself. Now I see humans. Strange children of another world. You are untested in my eyes, yet you endure. That is enough for now. The chamber grew silent again. The crew exchanged glances, still trembling from the trial. They had survived, but they knew this was only the beginning. David looked up at the towering guardian. Then what happens next? The statue's eyes glowed once more, brighter than before. Next, you must decide. Will you leave me to my rest, or will you awaken my full power? Know this: such a choice will shape not only your fate but the fate of all who walk beneath the stars. David felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. The chamber had tested their courage, but now it demanded their judgment. Humanity stood at the edge of something far greater than a legend. And the sun god was waiting for their answer. The golden light from the statue's eyes bathed the chamber in a warm glow. The crew stood close together, their hearts still heavy from the first trial of fire and storm. Yet they knew the true test had only begun. The sun god, towering above them, waited in silence. David's voice broke that silence. If you are a guardian, then test us again. Let us prove humanity's worth. We will not run. The statue's head tilted slightly, and its deep voice filled the air. So be it. But know this: the trial is not of strength alone. It is of spirit. Each of you will face what lies within your own hearts. Only truth can endure the light of the Sunday. As the last word echoed, the chamber shifted again. The walls melted away, the floor dissolved beneath their boots, and suddenly each member of the crew found themselves alone. David looked around and saw nothing but darkness. Then, slowly, a faint glow rose before him. Out of the shadows stepped a figure, his own reflection. It spoke with his voice, calm yet sharp. You lead others into danger, the reflection said. You bring them here to chase your hunger for discovery. How many will fall because of your choices? David clenched his fists. The words stung because they carried truth. He had brought his crew deep into a forbidden chamber against warnings. Still, he stood firm. I lead not for myself. I lead because humanity must move forward. If we fear every shadow, we will remain forever in the dark. I accept the weight of choice. The reflection faded, and the golden glow returned, wrapping around him like fire that did not burn. Meanwhile, another crew member named Myra stood in her own vision. She found herself surrounded by heaps of gold and jewels, treasures shining brighter than stars. A voice whispered in her mind. Take it. Claim the riches. You deserve reward for your struggle. Myra trembled, reaching out, but then she pulled her hand back. No, she said. This is not why we came. Knowledge is worth more than gold. The galaxy does not need treasure, it needs truth. The gold crumbled to dust, and she was left standing in golden light, stronger than before. Another crewman, Tomasz, faced his deepest fear. He stood on a battlefield, smoke rising, broken machines scattered around him. He heard voices crying out, accusing him of failing them. "You cannot save anyone," they said. "You are weak." Tomasz dropped to his knees, guilt pressing heavy on his chest. But then he remembered the words of his captain. "Hold on. Do not give in." He stood slowly, shaking, but unbroken. "I am weak sometimes," he admitted. "But weakness does not end us. We rise again. That is what makes us strong." The battlefield vanished, leaving only silence and the glow of light. Each crew member faced their own illusions: fear of failure, desire for power, memories of loss. Each time, they resisted, holding on to the core of what made them human. At last, the illusions faded. The chamber returned to its true form. The crew stood together once more, breathing hard, sweat running down their faces. They looked at one another and knew without words that they had all endured. The sun god's golden eyes blazed brighter, filling the chamber with brilliance. Its voice thundered. "You have faced your hearts. You did not surrender to fear, greed, or despair. This I accept. Humanity is not empty. Humanity carries light." The crew sagged with relief, but David raised his voice. "If we are worthy, then tell us, why were you left here? What is your purpose now?" The statue's great head lowered slightly, as though in thought. "My makers are gone. They built me to guard against shadows that once fell upon this world. I fought and I endured, but when my people died, I remained. Alone, I waited. I tested those who came after, but none proved strong enough to inherit my fire. Until now." David's chest tightened. He understood what those words meant. "You would choose us?" "Yes," the statue said. "But choice is not mine alone. It is yours. To awaken my full power is to bind yourselves to my purpose. If you claim me, then humanity will inherit both my strength and my burden. If you leave, I will sleep once more, and you will walk away unchanged." The chamber fell silent. The crew exchanged glances, uncertainty heavy in their eyes. The thought of controlling such a guardian was both wondrous and terrifying. Myra whispered, "Captain, this is bigger than us. If we make the wrong choice, the galaxy may never forgive us." Tomasz added, "But if we walk away, we lose a chance that may never come again." David felt the weight of command press harder than ever. He knew the trial had tested not only their hearts but his ability to decide. Humanity stood before a turning point, and he was its voice. The sun god's eyes glowed brighter still, burning like small suns. "Decide, human. Will you leave me in the dark, or will you take my fire into your hands?" David raised his head, his voice steady though his heart thundered. "Then hear my answer." And with those words, humanity's fate moved toward a choice that would shape the future of stars. The chamber was still, but the golden glow of the sun god filled every corner. David stood at the center, his crew beside him, hearts still pounding from the trial they had survived. They had faced fear, greed, and doubt, yet all had endured. Now the moment of decision had come. The statue's deep voice rumbled across the hall. "You have proven your courage, human. You have faced what lies in your hearts. Now, the choice is yours. Will you awaken my full power, or will you leave me in slumber?" David's gaze swept across his crew. Myra's eyes were steady, Tamash's jaw firm. Each of them had shown strength and wisdom beyond what he had expected. They looked to him, trusting him to decide. David felt the weight of every life, every choice, every future that might come from this moment. He took a deep breath. "We do not seek your power for ourselves," he said. "We do not come for riches or glory. We come because humanity must learn, must grow, and must protect life wherever it can. If your power can help us do that, then we will accept the responsibility." The statue's golden eyes flared, brighter than the desert sun outside. "Responsibility is not light. To awaken me fully is to accept my purpose as your own. My fire will burn, my strength will fight, and the burden will fall upon your kind. You understand this?" David nodded. "We understand. We will carry that burden because it is the right thing to do, not for ourselves, but for all who live under the stars." A deep hum rolled through the chamber. The floor glimmered, and golden light rose from the base of the statue, curling around its form like living fire. The sun god moved slowly, lifting its massive arms. Its voice echoed with warmth and power. "Then humanity shall inherit my fire," it said. "I will awaken fully, but you must swear that you will use my strength to protect, to guide, and never to destroy without cause." David raised his hand, his voice firm and clear. "We swear." The chamber shook, not violently, but as though the planet itself had taken a breath. Light surged from the statue, flooding every corner. The golden body of the sun god shimmered and shifted, revealing layers of intricate technology hidden beneath the polished gold. Circuits pulsed like veins carrying energy, gears and mechanisms turning smoothly with purpose. The crew stepped back in awe. They realized that the statue was not merely a relic or a guardian, it was a fusion of art, technology, and ancient knowledge. Its awakening would bring wisdom and power far beyond anything humanity had ever known. A soft vibration moved through the chamber, and David felt it in his chest. The sun god's eyes met his, and for a brief moment, he saw understanding there. It was more than a machine. It was aware. It was choosing them, just as they had chosen it. Myra stepped closer, her voice trembling with wonder. "It is beautiful. It is alive in a way I never imagined." Tamash nodded. "And it trusts us. We cannot fail now." The sun god's arms lowered, and its body pulsed with golden light. The hum became a steady heartbeat, steady and powerful. "I will teach you," it said. "I will guide your kind to protect life and spread light where darkness falls. But remember, power without wisdom is danger. You must use this gift with care." David bowed his head. "We will. We promise." The chamber seemed to expand, the walls glowing with new energy. Symbols that had been carved into stone now floated in the air, orbiting the sun god like miniature suns. Each symbol contained knowledge, messages from the ancient civilization that had built this guardian. The explorers realized that they were standing at the beginning of a new era, a moment that would shape the future of humanity. The sun god spoke once more, its voice calm and full of warmth. "From this moment, I am no longer alone. Humanity has chosen to carry my fire. I will sleep no longer. Together, we will face the challenges of the galaxy and protect those who cannot protect themselves." David felt the weight of the decision settle, but it was a comforting weight. The trial had been hard, but the reward was more than power. It was responsibility, knowledge, and a chance to do what humans had always done best: stand for life, even in the darkest moments. The crew gathered close, their faces lit by the golden glow. They were no longer just explorers. They were guardians alongside the sun god, partners in a legacy that had waited for thousands of years. Outside, the desert sun shone, but within the chamber, the golden light of the sun god now illuminated the hearts of humanity. David looked up at the towering figure and felt pride and hope. They had chosen wisely, and the sun god had chosen them. The golden light bathed the chamber for hours, revealing hidden runes, ancient writings, and paths to knowledge that no one had touched for centuries. The explorers took careful notes, recording every detail. They understood that this moment was not the end of discovery, it was only the beginning. And as the sun god's energy flowed into their minds and hearts, humanity felt stronger, wiser, and ready to face the stars. They had inherited a light that could never be extinguished. The choice had been made, and the future of humanity now glowed as brightly as the golden eyes of the awakened sun god. The chamber glowed with golden light, brighter than the sun outside. David and his crew stood before the fully awakened sun god. Its massive form radiated warmth and energy that filled the air like a living force. Every corner of the hall shimmered, revealing symbols and writings from a civilization that had long vanished. David took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We have inherited your light," he said. "We will use it to protect, to guide, and to serve all who cannot protect themselves." The sun god's golden eyes focused on him. "Then humanity is ready. You have chosen responsibility over power. You have shown courage, wisdom, and heart. You are worthy." The hum of energy shifted into a steady pulse, like a heartbeat. The statue moved slightly, lowering its arms so the glow flowed outward. Light spread across the chamber, and every explorer felt knowledge and understanding flow into their minds. Ancient strategies, histories, and technologies were revealed, not as secrets to be hoarded, but as lessons to guide life across the galaxy. Myra reached out toward the light, letting it wash over her. She gasped softly as new ideas and knowledge filled her mind. Tomash felt the energy ignite, a strength in his body and clarity in his thoughts. Each crew member knew instinctively that they were no longer ordinary humans. They had become guardians, partners of the sun god, entrusted with protecting life and spreading wisdom. David looked at the statue and spoke firmly. "We will not let this power be misused. We will share it only to protect and to unite. We will not let fear or greed control it." The sun god's voice rumbled, warm and approving. "Then your journey begins. There are worlds in shadow, civilizations in need, and threats beyond your understanding. You will lead, guide, and defend. I will stand with you, as protector and teacher." The chamber seemed to respond to the words. Walls shimmered and shifted, revealing maps of stars, paths through the galaxy, and locations where knowledge and life were at risk. Ancient technologies that could heal planets, purify water, and harness energy appeared, glowing faintly like waiting gifts. David and his crew exchanged looks, awe and determination shining in their eyes. They understood the enormity of what they had accepted. They were no longer just explorers, they were the first humans to inherit the legacy of an ancient guardian. Outside the chamber, the desert sun continued its climb, but the golden light of the sun god now stretched far beyond the ruins. Aliens from nearby tribes had gathered, watching the light in amazement. The legends of the sun god had returned to life, but now the god stood beside humanity, not above it. The tribes whispered among themselves, their fear replaced by hope. One of the guides approached cautiously, bowing to David. "Your people have been chosen," he said quietly. "The sun god has accepted you." David nodded with humility. "We do not claim this gift for ourselves alone. We will use it to help all who need light." The sun god's golden eyes swept over the desert and then back to the humans. "From this day forward, I will no longer be a silent guardian. Humanity and I will share the responsibility. Together, we will bring light where darkness tries to spread. As the explorers prepared to leave the chamber, they realized that every step they took carried new purpose. Their mission was no longer just discovery, it was guidance and protection. The sun god followed them, its golden form moving like living sunlight, illuminating the path ahead. They traveled across Unearthed, and the desert seemed transformed. Dunes glowed in soft gold, ruins revealed hidden passages, and the alien tribes watched as the humans moved with confidence and wisdom. News of their deeds spread quickly, and soon, other worlds began to hear of the humans who carried the sun god's light. David looked at his crew as they walked beside him. "This is only the beginning," he said. "The galaxy is vast, full of challenges, but now we have what we need to face them. Together, with the sun god, we can make a difference." Myra smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "We will protect life. We will spread light. And we will do it wisely." Tomash nodded. "We have been tested and proven. Now it is time to act." The sun god raised its arms once more, and golden light flowed across the horizon. The desert planet of Unearthed shone brighter than it ever had. Humanity's courage, wisdom, and compassion had awakened a power that would protect life and inspire hope across the stars. David felt a sense of pride and purpose unlike anything he had ever known. Humanity had been tested, humanity had endured, and humanity had chosen wisely. The sun god's power was now theirs to guide, and together, they would face the future with strength and hope. The golden light stretched across the skies, a symbol of a new era. Humanity's journey had only begun, but for the first time, the universe could see the truth: humans could endure, could lead, and could shine brighter than any darkness. And so, the sun god and humanity stood together, a new light in the galaxy, proving that courage, wisdom, and unity could overcome any shadow. The future of life among the stars was now in safe hands.